rock that music.
So admittedly, I have a lot to say about Final Fantasy VII Remake, and only such amount of time that I feel like I have in order to really convey my thoughts and opinions out there for the remake for Final Fantasy VII, because I got it significantly later than most people because of situations that have been happening over the real life with a pandemic going on. So I got it way later than anyone else, and I didn't buy it digitally. I got the deluxe edition, physically, obviously. So I had to wait a few more days in order to be able to get it, but I finally got it, and I finally played it. And like I said, there's so many thoughts that are going through my mind about this game that are just consistently going and going and going and going. And all I've been thinking about for like the past few days has been Final Fantasy VII Remake, and just how amazing and the feats that they have been able to accomplish with this game are amazing. Somehow this game managed to be able to do so much things that are similar, that are different from the original game. Some things are done better, some things are done just okay, and then etc etc. Just the overall presentation for this game has just blew me away completely. I was already significantly impressed by just the trailers on their own regardless. The trailers had impressed me have pretty much very well much have impressed me a lot, and I didn't think it would get any better. But then you actually play the game, and if you play it on a PS4 Pro on a really good monitor or TV, you're gonna get the most out of this game in terms of visuals. The game visually, with the graphics, the character models, and just the overall presentation, like I said, is done. It's just done so well, and it just is absolutely insane what they have been able to accomplish with this game on its own. There were times where I noticed during my gameplay, though, that textures wouldn't really load in properly, or much rather that they would load in slower than other times. And I think that's just because of the fact that the console, or at least my PS4, I guess I only have PlayStation 4 Slim. You might not have this circumstance happen if you're playing on a PS4 Pro, but on a PS4 Slim, there were times when I was playing where I noticed that textures weren't loading in completely, and it took like a second or two in order for it to actually fully load in. It happened more times than I can count, so it's just the thing that if you're playing on a Slim or like the base model for the PlayStation 4, be on the lookout for that. But most likely, if you're probably playing on a Pro, you won't be experiencing that whatsoever, and you'll always be getting the best textures and best visuals that you can possibly get out of this game. And just, it was amazing. Just every single shot, every single location that you go to in this game is just handcrafted in a way that makes you feel like you're actually in the world itself. And just comparing it to the original game, obviously, because I don't really want to do that because it's not really fair, because the first original game came out in 1997 on the PlayStation 1, and it's not really fair to compare that game to the the fidelity of what modern consoles are able to do nowadays with modern technology. It's not really fair. But if I was to make comparisons to both games, the fact that the locations and the places that you go to in the remake, just they look exactly the same as they did in the original. If you played the original and you know what Wall Market looks like, and you know what Sector 5 looks like, and all these locations, if you know what Aerith's house looks like, if you know all these things about the original game and you see it in the remake, it instantly hits you, and the nostalgia just is overflowing, and you're so excited to just see what else the game has for you. The modern technology and modern consoles have been able to make Final Fantasy VII look better than it has ever looked in its entirety, just at any point in time in history. Just the Final Fantasy VII characters have never looked any better than they do here in this game, and it is phenomenal. The soundtrack is pretty much what you expect from Final Fantasy VII. It's still the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, but they did remix versions for a lot of the songs, and pretty much all the songs are pretty much redone and remastered in a new way to make it different from the original. And a lot, it's pretty much the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. So I, instantly love it because it's the same soundtrack, just done differently, and a lot of it's super good. And I was really impressed with what they were able to do with the sort of changes that they were able to make with the music. The things that from the original are significantly changed, and the remake, like certain characters make it out that you didn't think that they would. Just little smaller, tiny things that that happen after Midgar. They end up showing up earlier on, or at least you get a glimpse of them in like cloud, like hallucination situations, and you see Sephiroth like way earlier than you did in the original game. You didn't see Sephiroth until pretty much after you left Midgar, until you got into Calm, I think. So it took a long time for you to see Sephiroth in the original game, but you see Sephiroth like all the time in the remake, and that's because you pretty much have to play through the entirety of Midgar in like 35 to 40 hours, and there's just so much for you to do there. The content itself within the game itself as well is also really well, and there's a lot of side stories that you get to experience, and like some of them are pretty interesting, and some of the new characters that they bring are interesting to say the least. The way that they handled the characters is the thing that was on my mind throughout the entire time, and I was impressed the entire way, and they pretty much handled it exactly like the way they should have. Barrett is, the loud, brash, like swearing a lot kind of guy, and he's abrasive, he's very loud, like I said, and he's always in your face about everything. Cloud is the one who's kind of like stoic and mysterious, and he's an asshole in the beginning of the game, and because he's trying to go just do things for a job, and he doesn't really know any of these people, so he's just hired as a mercenary, and he's just trying to get Gil and complete a job. But as soon as he sees Tifa, his true personality, his true character starts to reveal itself a lot more, and as he gets a lot more accustomed to everybody else, like Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge, he starts becoming a lot more comfortable with them as well, and he starts acting completely different like how he did in the beginning of the game. And of course he reverts back as soon as he meets Aerith, but then he starts reverting back once again when he gets back with Tifa and the others, which is smart. Like, the way that they handle Cloud so far, and the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake was really good. Tifa is kind of like calm, not calm. Well, yes, calm, but like this quiet and kind of like reserved like character, but she's very caring and loving, and she's kind of got like this motherly personality who's always trying to help people who are in need. And you very blatantly see that when she asks Cloud to go and help around in Sector 7 when you have to go and do side quests. And Aerith is very similar to that, except she's the opposite. She's very open, she's very eccentric, and she's really funny. Aerith was really funny in this game. She's not afraid to speak what's on her mind, and etc. The way that they handle these characters, like I said, is amazing. And Red 13 is in this game, but you don't play as him. You actually don't play as Red 13 in this game, and I think that's because maybe they just didn't have time in order to be able to program him to be playable. But they did program him to be able to move around and help you in battle. You just can't play as him, which was very interesting, I thought. But I guess they're just gonna have to save being able to play as Red 13. I guess I just am assuming that they didn't have time in order to be able to work on his AI or his player controllable AI, or not really AI, but they didn't have time. They didn't have time to be able to work on Red 13 yet. So that's unfortunate, but it's not really that big of a deal. The side characters that you meet throughout the game, they're all done exactly like the way that you want them to be handled, and they're all, again, like Aerith, they're eccentric, they're loud, some of them are abrasive, some of them are really fucking funny, and just everything about the side characters and the main characters as well was done incredibly well. I'm trying to think of other stuff before I start talking about the combat, because the combat was a thing that I had a lot to talk about in my early hours of my playthrough. But I'll just go ahead and start talking about the combat a little bit, and we'll just go ahead and get there. Combat was very interesting in my opinion with the way that it was handled, because it seems like, the main focus of it is that Square wants you to, switch from character to character to character, because all the characters are controllable. You can be playing as Cloud, and you can specifically play as Cloud, or to really make the most out of it, you can switch over to Barret, do an attack with him, switch over to Tifa, do an attack with her, and then switch back to Cloud, and then do like a limit break, and it all like links up together. And it seems like that's how Square Enix really wanted you to play, and I didn't really get the gist of that until many hours later in my playthrough. And just, it was really weird. The combat for a while for me was really weird, especially because there were a lot of times where an enemy would hit me, but with an attack that just didn't make sense for it to hit me. Like, for an example, by the end of Shinra Tower, when you get to Shinra Tower, if you played the original, you know what happens. You eventually have to fight Rufus and one of his hounds, or a hound, at the top of Shinra Tower, right behind where President Shinra would be. Excuse me. And I liked the fight, don't get me wrong. I liked all the fights in this game. The combat was definitely very fun, but there were a lot of attacks that I would get hit by from Rufus. Like, he has this attack where he has his hound, use thunder, or a version of thunder, right? And it hits Rufus, and Rufus shoots off an electric attack from his guns. And the only option that you have for it, I can only assume, is, well, maybe two options. You have to either guard it, which pretty much handles almost everything in this game, or you have to use Counter-Strike, which you don't get, or Counter-Stance. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's Counter-Stance. Which Counter-Stance basically just counters everything in the game, and is essentially kind of like the parry mechanic that you get from Operator mode, except it costs ATB meter, and it does more damage. And I don't know if you can actually use that in order to be able to counter, but I don't think it would work out anyways, because Rufus has an automatic counter anyways, besides when he's like reloading, and that's the only time you can ever really hit him, which was really weird. But anyways, so whenever Rufus would do that attack, I would try to dodge roll it at the last second, because I thought that the dodge roll would be able to get me enough invincibility frames to be able to completely negate any sort of damage I would get from the attack and just get out of the way, right? And maybe I shouldn't have waited at the last second, but if I did it too early, I would have gotten hit by it anyways. But even if I waited a little longer and still waited until not the last second, I would still get hit by it. My point is that I still get hit by the move for literally no reason. And it really started to irritate me after a while, because there's only certain, increments of window timings that you're actually able to do damage against Rufus. And the fact that he was able to do this attack, over and over again, and just kind of receive no punishment for it, whilst I try to dodge roll the attack and I get punished completely for it, it was just really annoying. And there are a lot of other enemies that have attacks similar to that, and it just was really weird. The combat, like I said, the combat was really weird. Like, the AI was super weird. They always go after the player controlled character, which was really aggravating, because they would go after, let's say I was controlling Tifa and I decide to switch over to Barret. The AI, instead of continuing to go after Tifa, instead decides to want to switch over and start attacking Barret, which is who I'm then controlling now, because I'm the player controlled character. But the AI should still be stuck on wanting to fight against Tifa. It shouldn't automatically just want to switch to Barret for no reason. Or if it is doing an attack, then it shouldn't still decide to want to switch over to start attacking Barret then, because it's still trying to do something against Tifa. And what if Tifa's low health? And you're basically just giving me a free opportunity to go ahead and heal Tifa and draw out this battle even longer than it's supposed to. And in certain situations, it didn't make the combat any more harder. It just made it more drawn out and annoying, and it was really weird. And it really felt like the game wanted you to use the stagger meter, which is fine. You know, the stagger meter is fine, and I think it's a smart mechanic, and I do like that mechanic. But it really felt like a lot of the times in a lot of different battles, the game really wanted you to use the stagger meter, and if you didn't have a specific materia on in order to be able to deal with it, then you didn't do anything. And it really felt like it also wanted you to use the assess materia, which basically just allows you to be able to scan an enemy and see what their weaknesses are and their resistances and etc, etc. Just a whole bunch of information that you can get. And it really felt like it wanted me to have to use those two things. And it wasn't really aggravating, but it just sort of felt weird that it really wanted me to use it. But I still had fun with the combat regardless. There were a lot of fights that I actually had a lot of fun with. Rufus, like I said, I really liked Rufus's boss battle fight. It was a lot of fun. The first fight that you do against Reno, that fight was fucking awesome. Reno's like attacks, just for some reason, Reno's fight that you do when you get to the church in Sector 5, it just hit for some reason in my mind, and it really stuck with me. And I was like, yes, this fight is fucking amazing. I absolutely love this fight. Something about it just really clicked with me, and I really love that fight. Anything else, really? I don't know. Just the game overall, though, besides with a couple of, problems that I have with the combat at times, the game overall just exceeded my expectations. This was the game that people had been waiting a long time for, and it was the game that I had mentioned the year prior to before FF7 got a new trailer. The story, not really a story, but like basically what I'm saying is that in 2018, I made a video before E3, and I was like, let's see what Final Fantasy VII is at the current point that it's at. I was really curious. I was really excited. We hadn't seen anything for like 3 years at that point, and I really wanted to see something, and we didn't get anything. The next year, at Sony's fucking State of Play, they show a trailer. They pretty much say that, oh, next E3, during E3 2019, we have stuff they want to show you, and what do you know, they end up showing up that year, and I pretty much called that Square was going to show FF7 at E3 the year prior. I just didn't say that it was going to be the next year. I, got it a year off, but that doesn't really matter. I just thought it was really cool that I mentioned it, and then the next year I, didn't really think it was going to happen. They end up showing up and showing off a lot of stuff, and it was really cool. But ultimately, just this experience that I got for FF7 Remake was something that I was really excited for, but I was also very nervous for, because I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know what changes they were going to make. I didn't know if they were going to somehow capture the magic of the original game. I didn't know if the gameplay was going to be fun. I didn't know what they were going to do. It was something that I was anticipating, but it was also something that I was really scared of, because I didn't know if they were going to somehow manage to be able to impress me and make me consider playing this game over the other, or if they were just going to severely disappoint me and just do something incredibly wrong. But they didn't do that. They pretty much made this remake for FF7, it's entirely a different game. That's basically what it is. If you want to play the original and still experience the same story, but don't really like the gameplay of the original, then you can play the remake. There are only really slight changes that, diversify it from the original, but ultimately the story is still pretty much the exact same, so you're not really missing out on anything, really. And, but if you don't really like the gameplay of the remake for whatever reason, and you're okay with, the downgrade in graphics, as long as you get to enjoy a different style of gameplay and all you're really wanting to play is the story, then you can play the original, and you can play it all on, the same console if you really wanted. You can play the original and the remake on the same console. Or if you don't want to play it on, the PlayStation 4, you can get it on Switch. You can get the original FF7 on the Switch and go play it about wherever you go. And I think that's super cool. But ultimately, just to kind of wrap things up and end off the video, because it went on for way longer than I was anticipating, the game really impressed me. It made me really excited for the next, piece of media of Final Fantasy VII that we're going to get. I don't know what they're gonna do with it, or I don't know how they're gonna be able to ship it out, because it's like we have Final Fantasy VII, and then the next game has to be evolved around actually being able to explore the open world, and it's going to be more of an open worldy kind of game, but still kind of linear, as there is a set path that you have to go to, like in the original game. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to just release it as DLC somehow, but I seriously doubt it. I think they're just going to release an entire like new entire game still called Final Fantasy VII Remake. That just seems like the thing they're gonna do. But yeah, I was really impressed. This is a game that if you really love the original and you want to experience it all over again, just slightly different with updated graphics and a new style of gameplay, this is the game that you've been waiting for. This is the game that if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan, this is what you've been waiting for. And I highly recommend that, even if you didn't play the original, to go ahead and give it a try regardless. And so that's pretty much all I really have to say about the game itself. It was something that I was really excited for a long time. And then they finally came out with it, and I'm really happy with what we got from it. And I'm really excited for what they're going to do next. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video. If you did enjoy it for whatever reason, be sure to leave a like. If you aren't new, subscribe for more videos just like this. I'm really tired. I didn't get enough sleep over the past like 3 weeks because Persona 5 Royal came out, and then FF7, I finally got that. And then just a couple of other stuff. I haven't really been sleeping well for the past like couple weeks, so I need to get that in schedule. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. I don't know when you're going to be able to see this video, but hopefully it'll be coming out really soon. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.